Welcome to Fransform, a series of webinars that are going to support you to focus on one area of your life and transform it. I am Safa, and I'm here with Rana, my good friend, and she's going to talk with us about balance, work-life balance. I know Rana from a few years ago, and I am fascinated by her energy and motivation and creativity and passion and multidimensional lifestyle. Rana is a career coach and a mentor. She works mostly, next to her private clients, with refugees, women in Berlin, and assists them in finding sustainable employment opportunities. Rana is passionate about writing. She runs an online writing club. She loves painting. She's into running. She cares a lot about her personal development and growth. And next to all that, she is a wonderful mom. Well, I am very honored to have Rana here in this webinar with me and to have her in my life as a friend. So Rana, the floor is yours if you would like to say hi or add anything to what I mentioned about you and your experiences.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Safa, for the nice words. I'm really flattered. And I would also like to introduce you through my eyes that I like to say that Safa is a shiny and precious person in my community. And I cherish our connection and her creativity and her adventurous spirit. With her, you always see something new, inviting, and exciting. So I'm also very happy to be here, to sit here today with you, Safa, and talk about this interesting topic, work-life balance.
How would you like to start?
Yeah, actually, I like to start with a short story about myself, which is relevant to this topic. In 2012, I joined a ESSEC business school in Paris to study international business. And at those years, the motto of ESSEC business school was this: you have the answer. So when you went to the web page, it was written like this: ESSEC, you have the answer, which was quite confusional to me because I traveled a long way to come to join this great school, to learn from this school the guaranteed way of success and happiness. And they are telling me that I have the answer. So it was a bit confusing and didn't make a lot of sense to me at those years. So I studied, I graduated, I worked some years in large corporates, international corporates, and just then I realized what was that motto about. It was referring to the source of happiness, which comes from within us, right? So we learned, of course, a lot of useful skills and tools at business school, but it's up to us to decide where do we take our skills and in which area we work, which is going to be influential in how we feel about ourselves, about happiness, and how do we feel satisfaction at work. So now, since 4 years, I'm doing career coaching, and I've been asked many questions, different questions from my clients, that I have one answer for them, and the answer is exactly this motto: you have the answer. So I thought it's interesting to share this story with you, and the topic of you have the answer inside.
Yeah, that resonates so much with me, because if somebody has been in my workshops or programs or have been my clients, they for sure have heard this from me, that I'm just here to support you find your own answers. It's that everybody has their own answers. And my question here for you is, because you're also a coach, what does the coach do in this story? You know, if people all have their answers, what is the role of a coach in here?
Yes, actually, it's interesting you mentioned this. I believe maybe people come with a more open mind to a life coach, so they are more open to reflect into themselves. But most of the time, when they come to a career coach, what they expect is to learn some small tricks how to go faster the growth or promotion ladder at work, how to get better ranking and the ratings at work, and to gather some information about the job market. They do not expect to be invited to reflect into themselves and look back into themselves. The thing is that all these skills and information techniques, they are part of it, but what I do, where I see myself as a career coach, and what I do at the beginning of coaching sessions is that I agree with my clients upon the goal, our goal, which is their ultimate happiness and satisfaction from work. And since the source of happiness is within ourselves, within them, so to achieve that, we have to look more into them than we look into the outside world. And that's how I try to play my role as a support for them to find their identity themselves and to make the best decisions in their career path.
So what I'm hearing from you is that actually everything is within. And then if you can look there and find your answer there and find your source of happiness and, you know, tap into that, then it will spread outside and gets to, it could be in your work, it could be in your relationships, it could be in your financials, in your spiritual life. So there's something that if it comes out, it can influence all aspects of your life. Well,
Exactly.
including the career and the job.
Exactly.
Great. So, Rana, the topic of today is work-life balance. And I guess everybody has a different definition of it. For example, I remember the first time that I heard about work-life balance, my idea was that, okay, if I'm working in a 9-to-5 job, work-life balance means that at 5 o'clock, I switch off my laptop, you know, I close off work and I go to life. So these two are separated. And ideally, I don't think about work when I'm in the life part. And that's how I create the balance. And of course, in reality, even if I do switch off my laptop at 5 o'clock, my mind doesn't switch off. You know, I keep thinking about the things that happen at work before and the things that are going to happen. And there is this, you know, like anxiety and stress and, you know, the self-doubt and going back to the decisions that I made. And I think that they were not right. And all the things that I said and I didn't say. And so anyways, the work and life is like mixed together.
Exactly.
So I want to be clear for all of us, what is the definition of work-life balance that we are going to focus on this webinar? So we are all at the same page about it.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, there is, as you also mentioned, there is not one agreed upon definition yet for work-life balance, but I chose several definitions that I'd like to share with you to be able to continue our discussion. One definition suggests that, actually a group of definitions suggests that work-life balance is when you accomplish your goal sets at work and at personal life, which means you have satisfaction in all life dimensions. This definition is interesting to me. Another group of definitions suggests you have work-life balance when there is a lack of conflict between what you do at work and your personal values and your personal life. This is also like eye-opening from other angle. And interesting thing is that at the beginning, work-life balance was focusing, a lot of researchers of work-life balance are defining it like between the focusing on what you do at your work and your family roles. But more recent research suggests strongly that to discuss this topic, we have to also include the non-work roles outside the family for the people, because this is also, if we exclude that part, the results of research can be really misleading, actually.
What do you mean by non-work roles?
Non-work roles outside of the family, for example. Yeah, if at the beginning it was like, okay, you are an online marketer and you are a mom, so if you are enough time to be an online marketer and you have enough time to be the mom, so it's your life is balanced. But as a person, I have also interest for example, gardening, you know. So where is that? So they did not look into the really personal identity and values. It's also the same trap that you just look at the people when they are serving the society or others something. So where are we when we are doing something for ourselves? This should also be included in the definitions. Yeah.
So which one is the definition that we are going to take with us during this webinar?
Actually, I don't want to stick to one definition because the audience, you know, maybe definitely we are struggling in different areas of our life. Maybe somebody resonates with the no conflict more because there is a conflict between the work that they're doing and what their personal values. Maybe somebody is struggling with the time. So, and some parents might struggle with the parenting role and think, okay, it's just to be at work and be parent. How can I handle that? And they just see, oh, okay, another dimension is there which should be considered when we are discussing the work-life balance. So I guess like this set of definitions can kind of bring us in this area where we want to talk about, yeah.
Okay, fine. So I assume that everybody can, depending on how they are looking at their situation in life and their challenges, can take something out of this session and take with them to do the transformation part.
Yes. And
so
I want also to,
because yeah, like I guess there are people in the session and people who are going to look at this video later. There are like different kinds of people and have different kinds of jobs. So who do you think can benefit from the conversation that we are having right now?
Actually, I believe that everybody should care about work-life balance in general. If you are employee or if you are freelancer, independent artist, if you are entrepreneur, and even if you are on the other spectrum, if you are working on human resources, if you are a senior manager, you are a CEO, or if you are making policies of how the job market should be, how the educational system should be, if you are a professor, if you are a instructor or teacher, because all of these people or entities, they have their role in this ecosystem, and I believe the sooner and the more the deeper they engage with the topic, we as a society can benefit from it and to be able to untap our potentials more smoothly and with less effort and cost. So I invite everybody to get engaged with this topic. First step would be, I would be happy if they listen to this talk, watch it, but apart from that also, to be just curious about this topic and this new approach of living and working that especially the new generations are more keen about.
Definitely. Thanks. So we are speaking about work-life balance and that everybody would benefit from knowing about it, whether they're going to use it in their own personal life or their family life or in their organization for other people, like facilitate it to happen for other people. Question is, why is it even important?
Actually, to answer this question, I want to go one step back in the history and to draw our attentions to how our societies are shaped, the working system are shaped. Actually, after Industrial Revolution, since the Industrial Revolution, we are having our educational system and our working system is like based on Taylorism. And which was focused on efficiency of the system and not seeing individuals within the system. Before the Industrial Revolution, a carpenter was a carpenter who made the design by himself or herself. So they chose their materials by themselves, and they decided how many stuff they want to produce. So they made A to Z tasks of their job themselves, and they made all the decisions themselves. But after Industrial Revolution and the cultural changes that came after it, suddenly we needed not just 100 tables, but 1,000 tables, and we wanted them to be exactly the same, because the result of that system, working system, was also very individual. The outcomes, not two tables, but weren't the same. So what happened and how we did it actually, is that we kind of, the carpenter was not carpenter anymore. Somebody was doing the design, and also the design was like with limitations of all we know all about all limitations that we might have. And somebody was just taking care of the production, just the supply chain and everything. So, and our education system is also designed to produce a workforce for such a designed working system. What they offer at school is not the goal is not to flourish people as individuals, but the goal is to offer the general knowledge that an average worker should have to be able to go into the system that we talked about, right? So what happened then, we have like job descriptions. So we get a job description and the tasks are written. So in large corporates, if Mr. A doing the task or Mrs. B at the end of the day, it doesn't make such a big difference because they all know what they have to do. Yeah, so since the schools never focus on who we are and how we look into ourselves, it was not priorities of schools, educational system, it was not the priority of industry. And exactly that's the reason that it should be our priority to look back into ourselves and see what talent do I have as an individual, what am I interested in as an individual, and how can I discover this and bring it up? Because if we are just small parts in the large system that we talked about, it's kind of our individuality. It's like our individuality is stolen from us. So to be able to do the work, the efficient work, we tend to lose ourselves in the jobs and to switch off the parts inside us that are trying to tell us something that, okay, something here is missing, where am I? So that's the short history. I hope it helps to realize why this topic should be on our priority list, because it has never been discussed during the years that we spent at school and at work.
Yeah, there comes up a question for me, but please do consider if it fits in our time. Because when I hear about this being one part of the system, and doing the job description that I received, to some people it might sound quite okay. I just go to work, I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 10, and I'm done. And then I go back to my life. And it actually like kind of fits that the first definition that I had from work-life balance, that I go to work, do this, go back to my life. While in the second one, when I find my, my talents, my passion, what I enjoy, where's my happiness, then it would be difficult to fit in that 9 to 5 job descriptive work that like the other people are doing. So like, what is the benefit of moving from that being a piece in the system to being my individual and, just my authentic self?
Actually, there are people, I don't say there might be people, there are people who never have any conflict with that. I believe one reason is that they were lucky enough not to be included in a system which actually which is in a working environment which is in conflict with their personal values. And they were so lucky so to be somewhere that's not bothering them a lot. Yeah, but I will say they are maybe also unlucky, because if the pressure is there, if you are somewhere which is very annoying, you may have a bigger chance to go through a difficult way, maybe to go through this self-discovery and find what you are really passionate about. And yeah, so there are different criteria. It's not like we say everybody who is not spending time with themselves to discover themselves are unhappy. No, maybe there are definitely other factors that they were lucky enough to protect them and to don't get annoyed. But as said, they have also untapped potentials that they have to, yeah.
Okay, right. So now we know the that background of this why work-life balance is important. Is there anything else that you would like to mention around this area of why it is important?
Yeah, actually, why is it important? Of course, because the source of happiness is within us. So that's why I always come back to this motto that we have the answer. So it is important to spend time with ourselves. But I want also to mention that our identity is not something static that we define, or we say, okay, our identity is stolen from us. Okay, I sit here, I define my identity in 5 minutes, and then I put it in a frame, put it on the wall, and then go live as I was living before. We have to consider that our identity is something dynamic, it's growing with us, and we can shape it. We have here a power, it's who we have been, where we come from, and who we want to be. So it can really get interesting if we get engaged with this topic, because we are dealing with something alive which can grow with us, and we can shape it with every decision that we make if we pay enough attention to the identity. And it can really influence what we do and how we earn money. Sometimes people just want to have a work-life balance, but then they explore some areas and they find something about themselves, some new passion, and they just change their career and they start to earn money from what they are passionate about. And then the satisfaction and happiness level is going to be really different in this case.
Thanks. That reminds me of like the book I've been reading about authenticity, and how, in general, we might think that authenticity means being myself and like finding my true self. And in reality, authenticity is creating the person that I want to be. And what I'm hearing from you about identity is the same, that it's not that like I do an MBTI test and it says that I'm like an introvert and thinking and, like INJT or whatever, and say that, okay, this is my identity and this is who I am. But no, it's something dynamic. It's something that I can, first of all, choose and then create. And what I'm hearing from you is that, finding those answers, finding those passions and talent and implementing them is something that can help it happen. And then that we can get to that source of happiness inside.
Yes, actually. Yeah, interestingly, because you mentioned that I'm introvert, extrovert, there is this new area, the science of individuals, that suggests there is not such a person as introvert person or extrovert person. We are acting differently in different environments with different people. It's depending with how many people are you, with whom are you in like a closed or safe environment? Are you in an open garden? So it's really not that simple. And the more we spend time and energy on ourselves, we can discover ourselves better. If I want to be an extrovert person or I feel good in that area, I can really, I can be that person, not with forcing it, but just with finding out where am I usually extrovert, and to help myself to be more often in those situations and areas. So we can really influence everything ourselves if we get engaged.
Definitely. Yeah. Much appreciate that. Thanks. Okay, so now we know that work-life balance is important and it's good and it's helpful. How can we create that balance?
Yeah, actually, the very good question. The most efficient way of having a work-life balance is to choose the right job. So if you never had any conflict, if you are working in a job that is aligned with your personal values, you are a very lucky person, and you should really celebrate it with yourself. But it's not often the case. If you are working and your work doesn't have to do anything with your personal values, then you have to consider work-life balance on the top of your priority list. But if you are working and your work is in conflict with your personal values, then you are in actually a complicated situation that we don't want to be. But it happens quite very often. And the reason for that is that when we are choosing a job, normally we don't ask this question of which job suits me. We ask this question that, okay, which job suit the job market better? So, and can I do it? This is the second question. Can I do it? Yeah, we can do a lot of things. We can learn the skills, but what is it that we are passionate about? So when we choose like this, our jobs, so it's very, it's logical that we don't have a balanced life in this area. So the most efficient way to have work-life balance is to reflect on what we do. And if you are right now at the point of your life that you are making decision for the job that you want to do, please consider this and choose carefully and look more into yourself than the job market. Yeah, this is like the most efficient way to have balance.
Great. So that's what I'm hearing is that that's for people who are at the point that they're going to make a choice. And the best way is to look at what they're passionate about and what are their talents, and choose the work based on that. So what if I am actually, and I guess it's the case for a lot of us that I studied something, I found a job I was lucky to find a job in a good company. We're looking at the best scenarios.
Yes.
And I'm also, being successful in my job, and I am having this perspective of the promotion in the coming year. And I'm really I really want to get a promotion. And unfortunately, next to that, this job is very taxing on me because it is not necessarily aligned with my values and what is important for me and what I'm passionate about. And I'm in this situation. So now what? Okay, one option is that I decide to switch career and go find something that I like to do and I'm passionate about and do that. But in a lot of cases, I am just in this situation, and I actually also like my job. It's not that I hate my job, but I also want to have work-life balance in this situation. So what would be helpful for me in this situation?
Yeah, I see where you're pointing at. Actually, the first step to have work-life balance is to create a distance between who you are and what you do. A distance between the tasks and projects that you accomplish at work and who you really are, with your values, your identity, and so on. So actually, for this distance, to have this distance, many people actually can experience a shock. We have a running system, and if exactly in your example, if something shocking happened, for example, suddenly you lose your job, or you make a decision to migrate, to go to another country, or you experience you have a near-death experience, you miss a beloved one. So just any unexpected changes that come. Many people who experience such unexpected changes, they can name them as a turning point in their career path or maybe their life. And some people experience one or more than one turning point. For example, becoming a parent can be a turning point for many. To be able to make these shocks and unexpected changes into a turning point, because not everybody who is experiencing this is benefiting from them in their career. To be able to do that is we have to actually accept our first reaction, which comes from fear, which is totally acceptable and normal. And we have to let ourselves to live that emotions that come up. And we reflect then carefully on what had happened, and we take our next steps very, very well reflected. I would suggest with a coach to sit and see why do I feel this way about what I have done until now, and how I want to define my next steps in my career path. You may suggest that not everybody is going to experience an unexpected change at work. For that also, I have other suggestions, but I wanted first to say, if something catastrophic happened to you, just try to embrace it and to make the most out of it. It is possible. It can have a very good effect. So if something happens, so just try to keep calm, get feared. It's totally fine to have fear, but just go through it with open eyes and yeah, maybe make that change that you wanted to make. And for the people who are not experiencing a shock, I would suggest, I want to talk a little bit about our hobbies here, because our free time is the key here, right? So I want to talk a little about our hobbies and how I want to suggest a definition of passive hobbies and active hobbies. Okay, let's name some hobbies, like what can be hobby? Watching movie, watching TV shows, reading, painting, playing music, doing a sports, or being like care about the human rights, actively doing something about it, or just following the news. If we look at our hobbies, I invite you all to think what's your hobby right now, and try to answer the question if it's passive or active. And to do that, I'm gonna give you some rules, simple rules. First of all, does it need preparation and planning? And does it have a tangible outcome? If these two criteria are met, so this hobby is an active hobby. Why am I discussing hobbies like this? As you mentioned, Safa, very nicely, the level of the engagement of our brain with our job is really high. Nothing can come up to that level. We are doing a lot of tasks that have to accomplish at work, different projects, different tasks. I would put it this way: for each of them, we have an open file in our mind, right? And even when we are not at work, even when we are at bars with friends and cafes, these folders still open. So they keep to be open. And sometimes even when we are sleeping, these folders are open. And to be able to come to that level, we need active hobbies, because what happens with passive hobbies is that they don't leave any trace of themselves in our mind when we are not doing them. So they just come and go. But with active hobbies, we can have a tiny folder open in our mind, which is often very empty. And what I suggest, or a very good and efficient way to have a good work-life balance, is that to try to fill that folder with more interesting files, so that it remains open even when you are at work. So that's how I define balance. You know, of course, it's not happening from the day one, because you have a small thing here, a big there. But for me personally, it came to a point that my personal project, which I come to it in some minutes, took over, and I changed my career. So that's also something I wanted to suggest, that I don't recommend or suggest people to jump out of their work and just find themselves a new one. This is not the way I suggest it. But just to have first of all, to think of your hobbies, to see which of them are passive, which of them are active, and we can transform passive hobbies also into active ones. And we have to then define personal projects with our hobbies.
Can you give us an example of passive hobby and active hobby? Because I know you just mentioned a few hobbies, but you didn't say which one could be considered passive.
Yes, reading can be a passive hobby. Watching movies, serials, scrolling in social media, reading news, all of them like active and normal things that we do, but they're all passive. They're not helping your work-life balance, right? Active hobbies like doing a sport, playing musical instrument, maybe painting, or making content is also very important. You may have a blog in Instagram, or taking photos, or a blog you write in. So these are active hobbies.
And how can we transform the passive to active?
Yeah, actually, to define, I suggest actually not just define personal projects for passive hobbies, but also for active hobbies. If you define a personal project based on that hobby, you can really transform it. But let's say, okay, my hobbies are all passive. So what can I do? Okay, you can define a personal project for your passive hobby, which can be watching movies. Yeah, let's say you take a specific director. This is like my suggestion, right? Everybody with other interests that they have, right? So you take your a special director, and you say, okay, I'm gonna watch all of their movies, and I'm gonna pay attention to the female characters, and to see how they were aligned or not with feminist ideas, or I want to see the fashion, how they were dressed. And like this, while you're watching the movie, you may take some screenshots, you may write down something, you may have to read something about it, which is can be a passive hobby, but it is engaged in this personal project. So it's gonna be in the folder of the personal project folder in your mind. And after all, you may write something about it, you may create a blog. And like that, also people who are also interested in that area come and find it interesting, come and comment on this. So personal projects can help us to have a community, which is also very important for changes. Or you may just record a video and talk about it, or just find some clubs in internet or in the city to go and discuss it. So this is how we can transform like a passive hobby into a personal project and into an active one. Yeah. Actually, I just want to add that this self gap, which is my Instagram page, was my personal project, right? So I had different jobs, and this was my personal project beside it. And then I had one of these turning points in my life. One of these unexpected changes happened, and I had this self gap. And then I decided, oh wow, I am really interested in career coaching, and now I have this space, so let's jump into it. So then I saw this project of being career coach for refugees in Berlin, and I joined the project. And since then, I had this shift, and I'm earning money from what I like to do, because that was one of my personal projects. So personal projects can really get us not only the career change, but also good and precious people in the community. I know Safa through Self-Gap, for example. And yeah, they can be really useful and bring joy and happiness to our lives.
Thanks, Rana. I guess also looking at the time, because I also want to have time to get to people's questions, is there any final talk or suggestions that you would have for people who are listening?
Yeah, actually, I can have list some suggestions, not a long list, but a precious one, I believe in them. First of all, define your personal project. So transform your hobbies into personal projects, and you see how it changes your life. And secondly, cherish your individuality and your uniqueness in a world that values sameness. To do that, you have to be committed to yourself and dedicated to yourself. And I suggest also to get a coach to help you to go through this path. And the next suggestion is find or build your own community. It's much more fun to go through this path with other like-minded people. Yeah, I guess rarely any growth happens in just isolation. So when people get connected, it's like opening doors. Yeah, you have more fun, more opportunity. You can encourage each other. And the last but not the least is that be playful and curious. These are the keys to creativity. Everywhere you see creativity, you see playfulness and openness. Yeah, so that are the suggestions that I have. And I'm very excited to see and hear your questions and comments.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rana, for this great talk. I learned a lot. Like a lot of bits and pieces came together, like when you were talking about community or playfulness, or personal projects. Like these are the things that I value so much, but I never looked at them like, okay, they can all together create balance in my life. I'm very grateful for that. And before we get to the questions, I just wanted to say that if you would like to be in contact with Rana, you can go to her Instagram page, Self-Gap. I would also write it down when I'm editing the video.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, you can raise your digital hand to ask questions, or if you have comments or you would like to share something. Nargis.
Thank you so much for your talk. And my question was that, am I going to exhaust myself by opening so many files into my head or adding personal projects, like so many personal projects? But I have done that before. And at some point I feel like I have so many things to do, and all of them needs preparation. I can't do that. And then I feel bad about like not being prepared for my personal or work projects. So what do you think about, is there any limits or how many of those projects I should have at the same time?
Actually, it's kind of the time question, right? Do we have enough time and energy for that? To talk about this time and resource question, I want you to reflect on this question. Have you ever seen somebody who is having a lot of time, who's doing actually nothing, and they're still not creative or active? We all seen such people, and we have all been like that in some periods of our lives, I guess, right? So we did basically nothing, but we were not even creative by any definition. I don't want to say time is not important. Time is the most precious thing that we have, of course. But time is not the most important thing that we miss here. because we actually do not miss it. The fact that we are alive means automatically that we have time, and I can tell you how much, 24 hours a day. The problem is that nobody can tell for how long, and that's the reason that we postpone the very important decisions that we have to make to get ourselves free, to make ourselves the time and energy and attention that we deserve to have. Yeah, so maybe I'm not suggesting that you have many personal projects at the same time. It's very good way of discovering what we want to be, what is our interests and values, to try different topics and different projects. This is actually the best way to discover yourself, to try different things, but you learn from them, right? You see, okay, that was not maybe what I expected. It did not give me what I expected. So I'm focusing on the others, or yeah. So I'm not suggesting to take a lot of different topics at the same time, but to try to find the ones matching you. And maybe at some point you decide that you have to make like bigger changes to your lifestyle to have enough space for what you are interested to do. Yeah, and just remember, nobody is 24/7 active, right? We all need some periods that we are going into ourselves, and maybe at work also our performance is not like we are humans, we are not like a line. We go up, we come down. So but don't feel guilty if there are not all the times you are not so hyperactive. That would be my suggestion. I don't know if I answered your question somehow.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay, I wanted to add something here very quickly, that because I have experienced it myself, that sometimes it's actually like the FOMO that makes me have a lot of activities and a lot of projects, because I don't want to miss out on anything. And what helps me is to set intention, like to be more mindful about what I'm doing. Is it like going to this place and joining that group and going like to this sport? Is it something that I really enjoy? And is it something that's really aligned with my values and with my life purpose and what I enjoy? Or is it just, to fill out time, or to be with people who I might think that if I'm not with them, then I'm going to lose them? Or not to have enough time and mind space to actually think about the things that are important for me. So it's kind of escape rather than being that active project that Rana is talking about. Just from my personal experience, I wanted to add this. And I see a lot of hands out there. So we go to Talaya and then Shapa.
Yes, thanks a lot for the very nice talk and conversation. Forgive me for not turning my camera on. I'm not much a Zoom person in general. I just wanted to add something also to the previous questions topic. I have personally like a couple of different hobbies, and sometimes I also have the feeling that it's getting too much, too many open files. My own trick is usually to turn them, do some kind of transition from active to passive to get more open files. Because, for example, I play in a basketball team, and my main purpose for joining that team was to be active, meet new friends, and yeah, if we win the games, we win, so it's nice. But if we lose, it's not much of a big deal for me. And I think that turns it to kind of more of a passive hobby with less open files, rather than if I care and constantly try to develop myself. Sometimes, yeah, I like to do that, be more focused on each one and make them more active. But sometimes that some other hobbies need more attention. I bring the activeness there more to the other ones. I wanted to see, how do you see that?
Actually, very interesting point, because it's also, again, very important to stay dedicated to ourselves. If I'm having, sometimes I feel guilty for having interest in different areas because I don't have the necessary focus and time and resource to dedicate to them, but that's who I am. So I have to accept myself and love myself for who I am. So it's to have different, because Talia, I know you have really different and areas of your life as personal projects or hobbies, and it's very good point to shift the focus from time to time from one of them. One project or one area needs more focus. It might be your work, your job, right? 9 to 5 job, which in a period of time needs more focus. So it's nothing wrong with that. If for a period of time you are working like 10 hours a day, it doesn't mean that your work-life balance is disaster. No. But when you are, I have this experience with writing. I have many writing projects going on, and sometimes I'm in a writing challenge, and I work through it. I mean, I work less hours than I have to at work for some weeks, and then the weeks after I compensate somehow. So shifting the focus can help to keep up, to keep going. Interesting point, Tale. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks.
So something I'm also hearing here from both Talaya and Rana here is just the awareness and mindfulness of what you're going through in your life, which area needs more focus at the moment. So as Rana said, it's something very dynamic. It's not that, okay, like 20% of my mind goes to work and then 30% to this project and the rest to that project and the rest in my personal life. No, it's really like dynamic, and the most important thing is to be aware of it and like actively choose what you want to focus on and how much you want to focus on.
Hi, thank you, Rana, and thank you, Safa, for exploring more into this interesting topic. I just wanted to add a few more points. I wanted to go back to Narges' comment about like having too many projects, because I can relate to her story. And I just want to share that what I heard from Rana, I think it's generic at this point, and maybe if we have sessions with her or based on private customization, it may change. Because to me, it looks like where you're standing. If you're, because I mean, you see, I'm the person who is quite workaholic, and I work for long hours, and my need is to find leisure time and fun time. So I try to avoid other projects as much as possible, because I really need to find some time even to do nothing. I remember that I joined one of Safa's workshop about how to be more fun and how to focus on leisure and imagination. And like, to me, that's what I need, right? So maybe for someone else who is bored at their work, because I have friends who say, I have to be at this job, but I don't like it much. It's not so stressful. I have a lot of time. I don't know what to do. Maybe for them, it's more meaningful to start defining new projects, because that will give them more passion and more meaning. But it's really up to where you are in that range, because to me, it's a spectrum. How much leisure time you have, how much fun time to have, what kind of needs you have, how much work you have to do, and what's the stress level of your work. So back to Narges' questions, at least the way that I hear it, I don't think it's one recipe for everyone. And I think what Rana was trying to say, and what I heard from Rana, is like a generic recipe, but that can be customized to everyone's story based on their lifestyle and how much they work and what they need. Because as I said, to me at this point, I really need to follow the art of not doing anything. Because to me, if I do a meditation, if I spend some time silent in nature, that's all I need. I don't need to define any new activity, because my mind is so busy with work and like other responsibilities that I have. So that's the need that I can define for myself. I just wanted to add this. And I also wanted to add something else from my personal experience. to me, it was very interesting the way that Rana described the meaning of work-life balance. Because you see, when we try to have a fixed definition, at least for me, when I try to put myself and fit myself into that category, that itself is very stressful. So if I define work-life balance as a very flexible concept, just like what Rana was referring to, as much as you have fulfillment, it's a very wide and flexible definition. So I don't feel that I need to adapt to a definition to necessarily feel like I have balance in my life. And to me, I can share a story as well. Like for me, even trying to catch up to achieve work-life balance is stressful, because the more I run, it looks like the more balance is going to be far away from me. It's like additional step, additional achievement that I have to put effort to get into it, which, my experience shows me that's not the case. I follow some different stories, and I came to peace with myself that, as Rana mentioned, I don't need to necessarily fit into a definition. Safa had a very good story. My first job in a different city, the reason I chose it was because it started at 7:30 a.m. in the morning, and it was supposed to end at 4:30 p.m. So I was like, wow, that's so exciting, because I can start the day early, and by 4:30 p.m. I'm done, and then I can do stuff like literature. I can go to play sports, and I'm much into journalism, so I can join some workshops. What ended to happen, I had to start the day from 6 because I had to go to the work, to be at the workplace at 7:30. And then usually it never ended at 4:30, it ended at 6:30. So my day was like 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I was like dead end at the end of the day. And it was more stressful for me because I couldn't achieve my expectation. So, where I'm going with that is, sometimes it's difficult just to try to fit yourself into a framework. I think I can still have work-life balance. I'm not at that job anymore, but I still work long hours, but I'm in peace with it because I learned that I don't need to close anything. I can just find a way to be very fluid in between what I do. So even at work, if I feel so stressed out, I can have a balance, which means I can open the door, I can come out, I can spend 15 minutes in nature, give myself the leisure of being part of the nature, which is I like, bring back to myself, and then come back to work. That, to me, that's balance. You see, these are small steps that everyone can take. And I'm just sharing it because I have a challenge, and it's still a challenge for me. It looks like you need to have a target to tell that I have a balance in my work and in my life, which I think it's not achievable. It's very fluid and it's very flexible. And the last thing I wanted to say is, culture is very important. It's very important where we work and where we live. I haven't been to Europe, but from my friends, I hear that European culture, working culture, is quite different compared to, let's say, if you work in Southeast Asia, or if you work in Middle East, or if you work in North America. North America, typically, I can say it's like very long hours, competitive, very stressful. I'm not saying the rest of the world is not, but what I'm trying to say is, if we have a fixed definition and we are in one part of the world and the culture is different, it's very difficult to fit into that framework again. So it is very important to understand where we are, what the culture is, what we can do for ourselves. I just wanted to add this because it's quite stressful for me to always run to achieve a definition. And I really enjoyed the way that Rana explained it, because it's not 0 or 1 definition, whether you're in balance or you're out of balance. I just wanted to thank you for sharing that, because that's very important. And if anyone is suffering from achieving this balance like me, I just wanted to share my story. That's like an ongoing effort. It will never end. And it's just about trying different stuff, not necessarily different activities, but maybe different approach. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add some points here. Thank you, Shabnam, for your input. As I said also in the beginning, some people may spend long hours at a stressful job, but at the end, they are fine with it. There are other criteria which are playing a role here. For example, the job is not in conflict with your personal values, or maybe your team is your team dynamic is making you in peace. There are different criteria. So there are always exceptions. I would call them exceptions, because if it happened by chance that I'm in an environment which makes me comfortable enough to do what's just my job, and it didn't come from deep inside. But there is also here, I'm afraid if we promote this kind of thinking that, okay, I am fine, so maybe you are fine because of the conflict thing that I explained. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about you personally, but I'm afraid that people tend to ignore their stress because it happens a lot of time. And at the end of the day, what happens when we are not dedicating the attention and time to ourselves? First of all, we are not talking about any achievement, right? What can happen at the worst case is to have to experience a burnout, right? And people who experience burnout, Safa was talking to me about this, that they are not necessarily working 10 hours a day. You may work 9 until 5 and still experience a burnout. So exactly. And the change in the approach that you mentioned, I believe it's really important. Now I want to highlight it, that we don't we should not look at the work-life balance as another achievement. It's a state of mind, a state of being, mindfulness, and maybe, as you mentioned, meditation. In a culture that achievement is promoted everywhere and everybody is running for achievement, maybe to have a peace of mind is the best achievement that you can have for yourself, right? So I guess this approach of, we have to get really far from this approach of having another achievement. I work in a really complicated, stressful job, and I also have my work-life balance. So this is not, and the work-life balance is not just for people who get bored at work. I want also to make this comment. Yeah.
No, that's not what I meant.
I know.
What I was trying to say was, you see.
Can I please stop you for a second here, because I would like to get to the rest of the question.
Sure.
If that's something you would like to discuss with Rana separately,
sure.
Reach out to her afterwards.
Sure.
Thank you. Aida.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you both, Safa and Rana, for very nice topic and interesting subject. When I raised my hand, I had one question which I'll ask you just in a minute. But then Shabnam's and Nargis and Talaya's talk or question or pointers actually reminded me some things that I thought that maybe is good or relevant here to bring it up. First, Shabnam, you mentioned about work atmosphere or environment in Europe and its difference between Europe and North America. Based on my personal experience, and even in Europe is different from one company to another company, and even from, I used to work in Swedish company, and then when I moved to English company, Austrian-based company, but in London, it was totally different. So it is, I think I had a very short discussion about that with Rana a few years back. So it is really, really important to get to know this culture of the company and the culture of the work in the country and the company. So that might be different. Even in one country, different companies might have different culture of working. That's completely true. And I just wanted to mention it because I experienced that one. And another thing that you said something about these stressful, if you put for example, want to have this more work-life balance as an achievement that might be stressful. Just as a personal experience, it's not maybe not related exactly to my job, but because most of the time I'm working from home, so I wanted to set a balance of work-life balance. So I set a point, okay, I need to be active. And first, maybe a few months back, I thought, okay, I cannot have 10,000 steps per day, and it was so disappointed, and then it was a pressure on me. And I had the discussion with a friend of mine, and she mentioned, okay, what if we just lower our target to 5,000 steps per day, and then go for that? And then I realized that, okay, it is achievable, and these achievements give me a boost. And then I can, in some days, I can just do maybe more, 7,000 or 8,000. So I think that maybe it's sometimes good to break down the targets for ourselves and then achieve those targets, and then get the positive influence of achieving those targets in our life. So that might be beneficial. So this is one thing I just wanted to mention it. And another thing which I actually raised my hand for this part is the work-life balance. Might be sometimes challengeful in different times of your life. It's not just a turning point. For example, I think that I have a very good, acceptable work-life balance at the moment, but something happens. For example, we have a deadline in a project, or our kid gets sick, and then these conflicts and these temporary just boosts and change in our work and life balance. I think that we need to have different strategy at these specific and temporary times. So I would just wanted to say that sometimes it's just a long-term things that we need to think of and set a balance or a strategy for that. But within these long term, sometimes we need, because it's life, so something happens and we need to find a very short term action for that and go for that. This is the things that just came to my mind and wanted to share it with you and just see your what you guys think about these points. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ida, for sharing. Actually, yeah, it's very important to put things in perspective. And for example, I can say an example from my life. I am telling people constantly that I write morning pages for 2 years now. And of course, I'm not writing the pages every single day, because exactly as you explained, there are things that coming, there are events, and yeah. So exactly, so we have to put the things in perspective. And we know that I know that I have a notebook there waiting for me when I am again fit, bodily and mindly, can go to, and it's a very warming and inviting thing that I built for myself, which is valuable, and I cherish it. But of course, I don't have to push myself for every day to really achieve it, like yeah, every day in my life. So it's.
Thank you very much, Rana, and everybody with your questions and comments and personal experiences. So yeah, if there is one last question you would like to ask, feel free to do that. Otherwise, we go towards closing the session.
If no one else has any question, I just wanted to clarify something here, because it's raised, and I just want to make sure it's not insulting to anyone. I just wanted to elaborate that when I mentioned being bored at work or at life or whatever, I was just trying to mention that we have a spectrum. Some people may want to. It doesn't matter on number of hours or whatever we are doing. It's about intensity of what we are doing. So if you see some people may be too involved in work and they want to spend more time in what they call life. And it's vice versa. Maybe there are people who have a lot of life activities and they want to be more in professional work. So that's what I was trying to say. What I was trying to say was, when we talk about balance, it's applicable to both of them. Maybe for Nargis, when she was asking the question, she's part of the spectrum, or for me, maybe we are part of the spectrum that we want to achieve more of non-work related activities, but there are people who would like to add more work related activities to their daily life. That's all I wanted to add. It's not about like what is important and what is not important. And thank you for that, Anna.
Yes, thank you for your point.
Yeah, I guess we're good to close this session. And thank you very much for joining, for bringing your, taking the time, bringing your experiences and questions with you. Thanks, Rana, for taking us through this work-life balance journey for this 1 hour, 1 and something hour. And I am going to continue these webinars with different topics that I received from people, topics that people would like to focus on and transform in their life. So if you're interested, you can join in the coming webinars. And I just want to finish with like a practical step that you can take with yourself from this webinar. It's not something that I would suggest or I'll ask Rana to suggest, but just for yourself, like taking 10 minutes after we're closing off this Zoom session to sit with yourself, in a quiet space that you're right now, and just, reflect on what we talked about and what would be like one practical step towards this transformation that you want to do. And then, yeah, if you need to talk about it with someone, you can reach out to me or Rana. I'm putting this video on YouTube, so that is also a place that you can write about, your experience from this webinar or after this webinar, or it would be like a little community over there to continue being in contact with each other. That's it from my side. Rana, do you have something else to add before we end the session?
Yes, I also want to thank everybody for being here, and thank you, Safa, for inviting me to talk about this topic, which is very interesting for myself. So I enjoyed a lot our conversation. I hope that you also did. And I'm looking forward to your other Fransform sessions. And I wish everybody to have a nice evening or any other time of the day.
Okay, goodbye, everyone.